Welcome to Superhero Pow. I'm your host nerd, Tom Fremgen. Welcome to another installment of Raiders of the Long Box, where we dig into our old comic book boxes and pull out some lost gems of the past. This time, we go to the year 1985. DC Comics was in the middle of its 50th anniversary celebration. Check out this cool pin I got at a convention. Humble brag. Their big universe-defining series, Crisis on Infinite Earths, was in full swing, as was their Who's Who, the definitive directory of the DC Universe, and the less well-remembered DC Challenge, which was another 12-issue maxi-series featuring nearly every DC hero. Yet, unlike the Crisis, the DC Challenge was printed on the new Baxter paper system. Paper and ink of a higher quality and therefore a higher price. While the standard comic sold for just 75 cents, the Baxter issue sold for $1.25. But aside from that, the real difference between the star-studded Crisis and the star-studded Challenge was the DC Challenge was insane. As the story is told, Mark Evanier, back at the 1983 San Diego Comic-Con convention, dragged Len Wein, Jerry Conway, Marv Wolfman, and others to the roof of the Executive Hotel and laid out the plans for a round robin, which would become the DC Challenge. Now, at no point in the story does anyone say they were drunk, but I'm guessing somebody must have been, because then they all ran around like school children, putting plans together and asking Dick Giordano, DC's managing editor, for permission to make this thing. He said yes, and might have regretted it by issue number 5. You see, as a round robin, each issue was to be done by a completely different creative team, and things got out of control pretty fast, even though they did line up some great talent. The list of writers included Mark Evanier, Len Wein, Doug Moench, Paul Levitz, Mark W. Barr, Elliot S. Maggin, Paul Kupperberg, Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, Dan Mishkin, and Marv Wolfman. The artist list included Gene Colan, inked by Bob Smith, Chuck Patton, inked by Mike DiCarlo, Carmen Infantino, inked by Bob Smith again, Gil Kane, inked by Klaus Janson, Dave Gibson, inked by Mark Farmer, Dan Jurgens, inked by Larry Massestead, Joe Staton, inked by Steve Mitchell, Rick Hoberg, inked by Dick Giordano, Don Heck, inked by Carl Kessel, Kurt Swan, inked by Terry Austin, Keith Giffen, inked by Romeo Taghall, and George Prez, inked by Terry Austin again for the final issue. Unfortunately, over the course of production, as some more creators came on to help out, some others had to bow out. Most notably, George Perez, who was supposed to draw the big final issue. I can only guess he had become too busy with the end cap of DC's 50th anniversary celebration with the history of the DC Universe. Probably a wise decision considering how it all turned out. You see, the problem was the writers could basically write whatever they wanted. The only real catch was each issue had to end with a cliffhanger, and the following writer had to resolve those cliffhangers. But aside from that, there was no outline, no plan, no plot, just nothing. Seriously, they could do whatever they wanted and use any character they wanted. And so the story, if you could call it that, became like a snowball running down a hill, just growing bigger and bigger with each issue. Heck, by issue number 4, the writers even started to joke about it in the editorial columns, as well inside the story itself. This is probably why DC, or anyone else really, has ever tried a round-robin comic book again. Well, DC did try 31 years later with the Kamandi Challenge in 2017, which was kind of a weird salute to Jack Kirby and his longest-running DC comic book, Kamandi, the Last Boy on Earth. But a little wiser this time, they came up with a framework, so it's a far more coherent story than the DC Challenge was, but maybe not quite as fun. All right, let's check out these issues, all 12 of them. Issue number 1 starts off with a great cover by Jerry Ordway and is written by the guy who came up with the whole idea, Mark Evanier, and drawn by Gene Colan. As we jump right into the chaos, the first issue stars Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman dealing with aliens, demons, and dead celebrities walking around. Just what the heck is going on here, Mark? As for the cliffhangers, an unknown assailant has defeated Superman, and Batman has learned of a nuclear bomb about to destroy Gotham City, which he is too far away from to stop. Moving on to issue number 2, the comic actually starts with writer Len Wein and rising superstar artist Chuck Patton appearing in the comic book itself, talking about what they're about to do. Quick side note, Chuck Patton unfortunately would give up comic book work for animation. After taking care of the cliffhangers, they would then add more demons and dead celebrities and time travel into the mix, adding more fringe characters like Jonah Hex, B'wana Beast, and Congo Gorilla. Oh, and Aquaman. As for the cliffhangers, Aquaman is trapped in the desert, and Jonah Hex is stuck in the back seat of a car which is about to slam into some nuns and orphans. Issue number 3 has a nice cover by Eduardo Barreto and is written by Doug Munch and drawn by Carmen Infantino. They quickly start by adding the Viking Prince into the mix and getting rid of Jonah Hex. B'wana Beast and Congo Gorilla also finish up their involvement as well. Then, once the cliffhangers are taken care of, Batman recruits Hawkman and Hawkgirl for some help. But then it's off to the planet Rann as Adam Strange's adoptive home is being invaded by a demon army. As for Aquaman, well, he's now surrounded by aliens looking to blast him. Now for issue number 4. As if things weren't crazy enough, Paul Levitz and Gil Kane come in and just make everything bonkers, adding Darwin Jones and Detective Chimp into the mix. As for the Viking Prince, well, Paul just kind of forgets that he was in the story. I mean, seriously, he's in one panel and then he's just gone. And now while everybody else is partying on the planet Rann, alien spaceships have invaded Metropolis as well. And Jimmy Olsen recruits Dr. 13 to help with all the demons and dead celebrities walking around. But then Jimmy, 13, Darwin Jones, and Detective Chimp all wind up in a limbo dimension with Deadman. For the cliffhangers, the evil aliens have rounded up the superheroes who are not from Earth for public execution, while some demons have taken over the Daily Planet and have revealed Superman's secret identity. Moving on to issue number 6, as things are getting worse, Mike Barr and artist Dave Gibson bring out some more firepower with Dr. Fate and the original Captain Marvel. As the battle for Metropolis kicks into overdrive, Peter Cannon Thunderbolt shows up, who I don't think DC had the rights to, so he's quickly forgotten. But then the Blackhawks and Uncle Sam himself joins in on the fight. For the cliffhangers, Adam Strange and newcomer Captain Comet have ended up in the limbo dimension as well, facing off against the Antimatter Man. And Captain Marvel and Dr. Fate are in the clutches of some elder god. Issue number 6 has writer Elliot S. Maggin trying to simplify things, while kind of making them worse at the same time, as artist Dan Jurgens draws Albert Einstein becoming a de facto cosmic being, basically trying to wrap everything up from the past few issues, while bringing in the Silent Knight and Rip Hunter into the mix. Maggins also manages to plug his own Superman book, The Last Son of Krypton. Always be selling. For cliffhangers, Batman is dropped into a volcano, and the Nazis have won World War II. Thanks a lot, Einstein. Moving on to issue number 7, writer Paul Kupperberg really breaks the fourth wall, as the Joker acts as both the narrator of the issue and a key cast member of the story as well. The artist for the issue is Joe Staton, and I'm pretty sure he and Kupperberg failed to really resolve any of the cliffhangers. They just kind of kept them spinning like plates. Aside from the Joker, Mr. Mxyzptlk, Plastic Man, Woozy Winks, and Space Cabbie also show up. See, I told you just about everyone in the DCU is going to show up for this thing. Kupperberg tries to push the story along by giving the aliens a leader and trying to explain why Earth and Rann are linked in the story. For a cliffhanger, an unconscious Blackhawk is about to crash his plane right on top of poor Woozy Winks. In issue number 8, writer Jerry Conway makes an attempt to really start nailing things down, bringing back old adversaries we haven't seen since issue number 3, naming them and giving them relationships. It seems that Conway was told to start making sense of this thing. To that point, Joker's storyline has been completely tossed. The artwork, though, is pretty great, drawn by Rick Hoberg, another artist comics would lose to the animation industry. This issue also gets into the multiverse, with Enemy Ace, The Outsiders, and a few new gods. For the cliffhangers, Batman is falling off a crumbling daily planet, which is also about to crush the outsiders below. Oh, and just to kick it up a notch, Conway has threatened to destroy the whole world as well. Moving on to issue number 9. Picking up where Jerry Conway left it, the new writer Roy Thomas boldly steps forward to create a unifying theory or plot for the whole series. It's not really elegant, but there you are. For the artwork, Klaus Janson does the cover and industry vet Don Heck pencils and inks, with somewhat rushed-looking pages. But the pages are packed as the Guardians of the Universe show up and explain, or in some cases rewrite, what has happened in the story so far. The Son of Vulcan shows up for a rescue, as do the new Teen Titans and the new Justice League of America. You know, the Detroit team? The new Vigilante shows up too, and while not making a heck of a lot of sense, so does a Nazi version of the Challengers of the Unknown. For the cliffhanger, it seems that Rann and Earth are both being pulled into the demon's netherworld dimension. Now issue number 10. Writer Dan Mishkin and artist Kurt Swan make an attempt to spike the football on the story by wrapping everything up. Kinda. As they add a new master villain to it all, Sinestro. And of course, more heroes are added to the mix, including the Unknown Soldier, some Green Lanterns, and some Global Guardians. Heck, even Popeye shows up. Captain Strong, or I think they're calling him Bebo now. For the cliffhangers, now Rann and Earth are going to collide into each other, and Superman is about to commit cold-blooded murder. Now, issue number 11. As we come rushing to a conclusion, writer Marv Wolfman, with a little help from Cary Bates, and artist Keith Giffen, with his awful new art style, heavily influenced by the artist Jose Munoz. Just look at this panel. What the heck? Anyway, they try to set up the final issue. The Spectre joins in on the fun, as does a bunch of one-panel cameo heroes. Oh, and Wonder Woman shows up again. We haven't seen her since the first issue. It's like everyone just forgot that she was in the story. Anyway, after wrapping up the cliffhangers, they bring out another master villain. And to spoil it, Marv Wolfman would even complain later, as the writer of this penultimate issue, he was pretty much just forced to make it all Darkseid. Because at the end of the day, it's always Darkseid. So Darkseid has somehow caused everything to happen. Life and death are merging together to get the anti-life equation and kill off all the superheroes. How's that for a final cliffhanger? And here it is, an oversized final issue, number 12, with Jerry Ordway bookending us with another great cover. The issue also features 6 returning writers: Evanier, Wayne, Wolfman, Thomas, Conway, and Mishkin. And 7 new artists: Dan Spiegel, Dennis Cowan, Luke McDonald, Stan Wolch, Steve Lytle, Ross Andrew, and Tom Mandrake. The issue starts by recapping the whole story in a hindsight is 2020 point of view. trying to tie everything together in one narrative. Which, if you don't bother to ask questions like, wait, why? Then sure, it all comes together. Next, the issue resolves the final conflict between Darkseid and the original Justice League of America. Which, while decent, might be a little bit vanilla considering how crazy this series has been. Lastly, editor Robert Greenberger wrapped it all up by saying that the sales were better than expected, the fan mail was positive, and the reviews were terrible. But hey, how could you not be proud of simply pulling off this whole three-ring circus? To which I would agree, as the writers just seem to take delight in making the next writer's job as hard as possible. Heck, the previous writers even got to pick the titles of the next issues, often coming up with titles like, "Don't Bogart That Grape, Hand Me a Gas Pump." Good luck writing a story about that. In the end, the DC Challenge really isn't a comic book you read for enjoyment. It's more of a comic book that you experience for enjoyment, if that makes sense. Though, sadly, it's never been reprinted. Okay, now before we go, let's check out some of those old ads. Let's see, we got Pimple Cream, M&M Candy, some Voltron toys. Oh, the DC Hero role-playing game. I still got that somewhere. A GoBots TV show ad. Oh, the Superpower action figures. An Elvira t-shirt. Saturday morning cartoons. And here's a ton of house ads. Got Frank Miller's Dark Knight. John Byrne's Superman. Amazing Man. Booster Gold. Angel Love. The Blue Beetle. The new Secret Origins series. And here's DC's 1986 wall calendar. Man, DC was just on fire back then. All right, now, one last final thing, because there's just so much to talk about with this series. The editorial pages, which were just as fun as well, because they were used to allow the previous writer to explain the stuff they had written, including their solutions to the cliffhangers. So this series is really just one of a kind, for better or worse. But now, what do you think? Did you pick up this series at the time, or have you never heard of this thing? Either way, thanks for spending time with me. And if you could be so kind to like, subscribe, and notify, I promise not to send you a picture of what I got growing on my toe. I'm not sure what it is, but it sure don't look right.